if Ferrari had won testing, finished fastest, we'd all be like, well, Mercedes is still probably quicker. Mercedes are fastest, and we're like, season's over.
Mercedes is the big story of day 2 of F1 pre-season testing here in Barcelona, specifically its trick steering system.
All the talk this morning has been about the new Mercedes trombone steering wheel device. And this was seen when Lewis Hamilton pulled the steering wheel towards him, something you never really see, but as he did it, the front geometry seemed to change and then pushed it away again back to its normal position. So the question is, what is going on there? Everyone's trying to be getting their head around it. What it seems to be is it's a toe changing device. So Formula 1 car, you have toe, which is the angle of the front tyres, and you have toe in, which pitches them in towards each other, or toe out, which pitches them against each other.
So it's unsurprising that after the first 3 days there was quite a lot of questions surrounding Ferrari. Their reliability, their times, the amount of laps that they did. They weren't even really on Red Bull's level, so of course Matteo Binotto did have to answer quite a few questions from the media regarding, are they sandbagging, are they in trouble? He started off by saying, looking at the delta pace and eventually what we may assess in terms of fuel load, which you never know in terms of engine modes, etc. Looking at the picture relative to ourselves, I think we are not as fast as they are. I'm not as optimistic as last year. The others are faster than us at the moment, I believe. How much faster? I think it's really difficult to judge.
Matteo Binotto did come out saying, look, we kind of made a bit of a tit of ourselves last year by coming out of the block so quick and then falling on our faces pretty early on into the season. So I think they've just been a bit more cautious, and all the teams, none of the teams want to show what they've got in testing. Like, they don't want to show their full potential because they need to keep that kind of under lock, under wraps. And Australia is never a good indicator anyway of where everybody else is sat.
The world must prepare for a potential coronavirus pandemic. That's the warning from the head of the World Health Organization.
We have rung the alarm bell loud and clear.
A quarter of the world's population is now living under some form of lockdown due to coronavirus. More than 3 billion people in almost 70 countries and territories have been asked to stay at home.
At 10:21 on Thursday night here in Melbourne, McLaren issued a press release saying it had withdrawn from the Australian Grand Prix thanks to one of its personnel testing positive for coronavirus. This set in motion a chain of events that ultimately led the Grand Prix to be cancelled.
ADPC has been advised by Formula 1 of the cancellation of the race.
To our race fans, I'd like to say we're terribly disappointed.
Ross, the world is in an unprecedented situation with a pandemic in the form of the coronavirus, and the Australian Grand Prix has now been cancelled. But can we take it back a week to when the freight left Europe? Why was the decision taken then to race in Australia?
Well, I think you have to go back even further because, sea freight's leaving for Australia 3 or 4 weeks before the race. But we were very keen to have the race. It's a very positive event here. It's a great start to the season. We wanted to kick-start the Formula 1 season. Huge enthusiasm here. We have a big impact on the economy here. And we have an impact on our economy. Formula 1 has to function. We have to make it work. So we looked at the whole situation. And when we decided to go ahead, it looked a bit different to how it looks now. And I think probably what's surprised everybody is the rapid expansion of this problem. The escalation of cases, certainly in countries like Italy, where it's gone almost vertical in terms of no one, I think, could have expected or predicted that.
F1 has now postponed or cancelled its first 7 races, with the Dutch, Spanish and Monaco Grand Prix the latest additions to that list.
Now, with the current COVID-19 situation worldwide preventing any real-life races, we're bringing you these shows to add some much-needed joy and top-quality action from the virtual track.
Away we go! Who's going to get the best getaway as we wait to see the move down towards the first corner? Quite a bit of wheel spin there for Philipp Eng.
And away we go in Brazil with a spin immediately for Van Dorn, who's trying to hold it together, but he can't. Absolute chaos at the start. There's another one into the wall. Oh, no!
The
That's a mistake from Leclerc, and I'm pitching. Look, the braking late.
I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say.
Oh my god. I've never looked so good.
No, you don't need to put gel in this.
Oh my god! Leave the space! No! What is... Wait, honestly, what is this? Oh, George, you are so bad! Oh my god! He's over! Oh, I'm putting the 4 lights just for safety. It's bigger than a hornet. It's like a bird, man. It's just on my light. Oh my god, he's looking at me. He's looking at me. I got scared. It's fat. I see it. I have a visual. This turn. This turn. I told you.
Formula One stakeholders have unanimously agreed to delay the introduction of the major technical changes planned for the 2021 season as a result of the disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The season will start in June at the earliest, leaving F1 with a battle on its hands to fit in as many races as possible, instead of what should have been a record 22-race calendar.
Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari dream is over. The 4-time Formula One world champion will leave the team at the end of 2020, and barring a sensational turnaround in form, will do so without winning the title he and Ferrari craved. Vettel's shock exit from Ferrari draws a line under a long-running saga over whether he would stay alongside Charles Leclerc beyond this season. But it puts his future in F1 in doubt and will ignite the driver market.
Bang! The Formula season almost seems like it's just lit up, and there is so much to talk about now with all of these new driver transfers. So of course, this all started with the Ferrari announcement that Sebastian Vettel would leave the team at the end of the 2020 season. Now of course, immediately after that, it was announced that it would be Carlos Sainz who would replace Vettel at Ferrari on a 2-year deal, partnering alongside of course Charles Leclerc. That will take him up of course until 2022.
Good call, I think, in the end.
We thought Perez was the safe option, didn't we? We kind of said, are Ferrari going to go for such a young driver lineup with like pretty much no wins apart from obviously Charles's 2, but they've gone for it, haven't they?
There's no racing going on in Formula One, but we've had a crazy few days in the driver market, starting with Sebastian Vettel announcing he was leaving Ferrari. Carlos Sainz Jr. has got that drive. But here today, we're going to talk about Sainz's replacement, which is Daniel Ricciardo, who leaves Renault to go to McLaren.
Ricciardo's absolutely making the right move to get out of there, because a team that is unable to look inward and see what they're doing wrong and looks for scapegoats is never going to make up the ground that they need to challenge a team like Mercedes, for example, which is so well sorted.
So in terms of the vacant seats, of course that does leave us with Renault, the seat at Renault, and who is going to be able to take that? Of course, Fernando Alonso. Now that is a massive rumour, and I do think there is actually a possibility that it could happen.
Formula One is back on track. After a hiatus of more than 3 months, 102 days to be exact, we saw an F1 car hitting a circuit again thanks to Mercedes' 2-day test at Silverstone with a 2018 car.
Some very exciting news for Formula One fans. After much speculation over the last few days and weeks, a little bit earlier this morning, Formula One released their official 8-race European calendar, and that includes a start date for the 2020 season. It looks as though we might just be going racing.
We've known for a while that Formula One will have strict measures to adhere to when the season begins in Austria. as part of a so-called biosphere plan created by the rule makers. Charter planes have been arranged, there's a limit on team personnel, and everybody attending will be tested before travelling and then every 2 days after arrival.
Oh, this is fast.
Away we go! And Bottas gets away very nicely indeed. Verstappen alongside Lando Norris. Albon and Hamilton going wheel to wheel as Bottas through turn 1. And Norris goes ahead of Verstappen but off the track. Also off the track goes Charles Leclerc as well. Bottas leads. Verstappen's back in second. Norris behind him. Albon has Lewis Hamilton right alongside him as well. And then there's 3 abreast behind that. Perez and Vettel and also Carlos Sainz. As into turn 3 we go. And Norris pressurising Verstappen but having to stay behind.
Norris Bernie trying to get around the outside. Verstappen was not leaving any space, but Luke's got a great slipstream. No DRS, no drag reduction system for the first 2 laps, of course. And it's getting very close. Lewis then. Lewis really struggling in the back of the pack there.
Formula One is back for 2020. It is just crazy.
What a banger.
A banger it was. To be fair, halfway through it was quite good, but then it just got so juicy with 15 to 20 laps to go, and, well, the rest is history.
Verstappen going slowly, and has he lost power in the heat of the Red Bull Ring, and that is disaster.
Nothing he can do, and just this is looking like the end.
They're going wheel to wheel. Leclerc's on the inside. Carlos Sainz will be his teammate next year and crashes into Sebastian Vettel this year. Sebastian Vettel spun round by the man who's replacing him at Ferrari.
Yeah, and Leclerc and Sainz teammates next year. I'm sorry, but Sebastian Vettel put his nose into a place it should not be.
And Kimi Raikkonen's had a massive crash. The tyre actually came off the wheel. Safety car is coming out. Whoa, this is not what Mercedes wanted.
Do not miss this last 20 laps.
Alex Albon is one to watch now at the restart, isn't he? Albon is all over the back of Hamilton, who once again forces in the long way round. Norris goes the long way round on Perez.
No,
and Albon again, no, with Lewis Hamilton. He's lost out once more as it was in Brazil. He comes off second best. The cars touch, and the podium that looked a certainty has been wiped out in a matter of seconds. Charles Leclerc down the inside on Sergio Perez. God, that was late. That was brilliant. Charles Leclerc into the podium places as Lewis Hamilton is given a 5-second penalty for causing a collision with Alex Albon. Got about 6-7 tenths in hand on Lando Norris, who could finish on the podium yet, because Hamilton's going to take a 5-second penalty. Chaos and carnage at times, but Valtteri Bottas wins the season opener here in Austria. It is a Mercedes 1-2 on the road, but Hamilton will not keep second place. He gets a 5-second penalty. Charles Leclerc, after a miserable weekend so far for Ferrari, gets on the podium, and Lando Norris gets on the podium for the first time in Formula One because of Lewis Hamilton's penalty, and by a tenth of a second, Lando Norris is a podium sitter. McLaren are on the podium, and what a start to the season this has been.
Lando, the gap to Hamilton was 4.8. I think that's a podium, mate. I think that's a podium.
Yeah, boy! Tuesday.
Yeah, man.
You're obviously the key to it all. Vamos! Vamos!
And that last lap by Lando Norris, his first Formula One podium. What an astonishing day for him.
He's been on it all weekend. He's kind of usurped Carlos Sainz, his more experienced teammate, and all the way through that Grand Prix he was making progress. When he had that contact with Sergio Perez, I had my heart in my mouth, but he managed to hold that together, and then we had that final flurry of laps where he just, when the team told him he had to get on with it, he got on with it.
Hamilton then coming towards the end of his last lap, and look how treacherous the conditions are. Lewis Hamilton on pole position.
Champions drive. Knew where the extra grip was. On pole by 1.2 seconds.
This has been a very comfortable afternoon for Lewis Hamilton. He comes round the final corner to win.
He's got good traction here, Crofty, as well. He's going to get the benefit of DRS. Norris could take this.
He got the fastest lap last week. He's got a place ahead of Lance Stroll this week, and he's up into 6th place. The checker flag has waved for the top 3 as Max Verstappen crosses the line, but behind them they're still scrapping away for the places. Sergio Perez, well, he might take 5th, but these 3 are gaining on him, and Perez is losing an awful lot of pace. There he is with that damaged front wing. Norris might yet take 5th, you know, as he goes wide. Perez, Norris is past the Racing Point. He's done 2 in the same lap. Perez ahead of Stroll, ahead of Ricciardo behind. Oh, it's a tight finish. It's a photo finish.
Oh dear. That is... The weekend goes from bad to worse for Max Verstappen on the way to the grid.
I think the damage will be too much. He might be lucky, you know, you never know.
We've got about 18 minutes to go until lights out, so they're very much up against it.
When you see drivers like Max making mistakes like that in these conditions, you know it's going to be tricky for all drivers out there when the race actually does start.
They're not giving up, but it's a real race against time.
It's the Hungarian Grand Prix, 70 laps to come around the Hungaroring, and it's lights out, and away we go.
Herring Valtteri Bottas may well have jumped the start, despite not being in a particularly good position there.
Into the pit lane comes Lewis Hamilton, the race leader.
Lewis Hamilton actually built a nice gap to get comfortably out without having to do anything special in the pits. It was a steady stop. Sebastian Vettel also pitting, and just seeing if he's going to be delayed by the Red Bull. He is. Oh, it's an awful stop for Sebastian Vettel. What is going on? He can't find a gap in the traffic. He's lost so much time. The Red Bull also gets away, but it's such a busy pit lane as everyone decides this is the lap to go to slicks.
Just look at, that's how the Williams got a puncture, released into the path of Carlos Sainz.
That was Williams' fault.
And this will lift Lewis Hamilton, I'm sure, to the top of the Drivers' Championship. No one's ever won 3 races in a row at the Hungaroring. Lewis Hamilton's done it now, though. It's the Hungarian Grand Prix for the 8th time for Lewis Hamilton. It's been a very busy first 3 races in 2020. And as we head for our first week-long break, it's Hamilton and Mercedes on top.
It finally happened. Racing Point's controversial pink Mercedes has been protested by Renault, and Formula One's world champion team has now been dragged into the investigation the FIA has launched.
Let's kind of rewind back a little bit. Now, pictures basically started to emerge at the beginning of testing on Wednesday, which showed us our first glimpse of the brand new Racing Point car and the livery kind of together in their 2020 package. The new 2020 racing car had a striking resemblance to the 2019 Mercedes, especially the nose of the car.
Racing Point has not shied away from the fact the 2019 Mercedes was the inspiration for its car design, but it has always maintained it was done legally through extensive photography any other team could have commissioned. But after Racing Point drivers Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll charged from the second half of the grid to challenge for top 6 positions for most of the Styrian Grand Prix, the grumblings have now turned into a formal protest.
Good morning, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this statement. I do not often speak publicly. However, I'm extremely angry at any suggestion that we have been underhand or have cheated, particularly those comments coming from our competitors. These accusations are completely unacceptable and not true.
Breaking news in the world of Formula One. Renault's protest at the legality of Racing Point's 2020 Formula One car has been upheld, and Racing Point not only have a €400,000 fine, they've been deducted 15 points in the constructors' standings.
What do you make of the steward's decision to uphold the protest?
Well, we're still trying to digest it. I think we need to ask some questions and get further clarification. But it's a bit disappointing. We thought we were well within the rules and did absolutely nothing wrong. We now have to discuss with the FIA what's going to happen going forward.
I'm at least 50% happy because first and foremost, and which probably matters the most, it's clear to everyone what's been going on, the passing on of information, the passing on of parts, the confirmation that there is a breach of sporting regulations. Those things matter a lot to me.
You know, as a team that has always been very proud to protect the DNA of this sport, we're a firm believer that list of listed parts should be protected, and teams should be manufacturing and designing the performance-related parts on their race cars. That's what differentiates teams. That's what makes teams successful in this sport, and so we must do everything that we can to protect it.
It's lights out and away we go. Verstappen gets away well. Can he catch the two Mercedes? Hamilton and then Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc, then Sainz, Ricciardo ahead of Norris. And that's the Haas into the gravel at Club at the end of the first lap.
Are you okay, Kevin? Are you okay?
Yeah, good.
Okay, sorry, man.
That might be a safety car, it is. Someone's had a very, very big crash, and it's Danny Kvyat.
Yeah, and that's a big impact, but luckily the safety cell is pretty mighty on a Formula 1 car these days. I think the right rear tyre had come adrift because he spun across the curb. You got so much downforce there. Yeah, right rear tyre puncture.
Once again, we see the safety car, and Carlos Sainz ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Round the outside goes Lando Norris. Lando Norris has this time got Daniel Ricciardo, and maybe it was 2 onto 1, and an unfair advantage that McLaren got, but he got his man, and Norris isn't satisfied with Juan Renault. He wants his teammate as well, and goes wide, and Copse, does that let Ricciardo pass? No, he's dropped back a little bit. Norris trying to make a move through Copse. There is Kimi Räikkönen, as you can see, he has lost a huge part, if not all of it.
No, I tell you what's happened. The front wing's broken, and I think punctured the front tyre. It has. Yeah. It's machined a groove in the tyre.
I remember just sat there watching the race, and I was looking at the delta, and I saw Bottas falling away from Verstappen, and I thought, okay, he's losing a bit of time. But then I saw it coming down it came down like by a second. Every second, and I was like, oh my god, something's wrong with Bottas. And then 5 seconds later, boom.
I think that Vettel on the pace, he's at the moment, and what's happened to Valtteri Bottas? He's gone wide, and now Max Verstappen can see the Mercedes and can see him in his rear wing. He has passed.
Yeah, left front puncture there, left more than a puncture. And Mercedes will be extremely worried. No wonder it's vibrating. Will be extremely worried for Lewis Hamilton.
And this is Verstappen now coming in, because they know Valtteri Bottas is going to have to come into the pit. Well, it's a free pit stop for Red Bull, and it stops them having any tyre issues as well. And that is Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton is winning the Grand Prix. But look at the state of that Mercedes car as he crosses the line.
He might get it home, but I'm staggered they didn't bring that car in to protect against that. It's only going to be a fraction behind the other car.
He's going through Maggots and Beckett's at the moment. Hamilton's tyre's gone. Verstappen's just going through Woodcote. He's about 4 corners behind.
Once we knew it was Lewis Hamilton, once we knew he was on the final lap, and because we knew Max Verstappen had pitted, my heart, and many people as well, because I've talked to a lot of fans that said the same thing, my heart was pounding like crazy. I didn't know what to expect. Was Lewis Hamilton going to make it on 3 wheels? Was Max Verstappen going to chase him down on fresh tyres and get an unlikely win?
I genuinely started screaming.
Lewis Hamilton praying that the checkered flag comes as soon as is humanly possible. The gap between Hamilton and Verstappen going down all the time, 20 seconds at the moment, and down the hanger straight comes Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen just going through, you can see him in the background, going through Chapel, through Stowe now with Lewis Hamilton. Well, they shouldn't catch him from there, but who knows how this race is going to end. Through the Vale chicane, look how difficult it was to stop. But for Lewis Hamilton, the checkered flag will come in the nick of time for a 7th British Grand Prix victory, and a record 7th British Grand Prix victory for the most wins at home. It's Lewis Hamilton who takes the race. Max Verstappen comes home to take second.
That's it, mate. You've done it. You've done it. Well, that's it, mate.
A lot of people are comparing this year to what happened at Silverstone in 2013. Now, although there are similarities, I think they're very different because in 2013, I think it was mostly down to the curbs, and also it was happening to people at various points throughout their stint. It wasn't like it was this year, where if you kind of exclude Daniil Kvyat, we mostly saw these tyre failures right at the end of the race, right when the tyres were pretty much dropping off, and also at that kind of limit where Pirelli said, you know, the hard tyre, it can probably do about 40 laps. And yes, we had some safety cars which were obviously going to extend the stints, but they were right on the edge. I mean, Silverstone is one of the quickest circuits on the calendar. It's a really old school track, and it's one of the most abrasive as well because of the speeds that they're doing, especially with these modern cars. So I think it almost compounds the problem, and that is why we saw so many tyre failures, especially towards the end, especially when the drivers were just trying to eke out the last of their tyres. We saw people like Kimi Raikkonen have a tyre failure, Carlos Sainz, then Valtteri Bottas, and then the big one and the most dramatic one, which was Lewis Hamilton as well. And although Lewis's wasn't dramatic in the sense that it was a massive tyre failure, it was when it happened, you know, on the final lap after a third of the lap was completed. He was around Brooklands corner when it really kind of let go, and he did the last 2/3 of the lap on basically 3 wheels whilst being chased by Max Verstappen, and it definitely gave one of the most dramatic ends to the race.
I feel like the way in which he drove that car back to the pits was nothing short of astonishing. The fact that he was able to keep that tyre in check in the way that he did. I know, obviously, some of it might be luck, some of it might be good fortune. But there's some drivers that in that situation would have gone too fast, blown up the front left, and then potentially been out of the race.
Very big and breaking news coming out of Formula One, as we have our first driver that has tested positive for COVID-19 in Sergio Perez from Racing Point.
He was being rested, he was isolating, but now having proved positive, obviously he comes now under the government isolation that he has to be in for, I believe it's 10 days.
Exactly, and that just means that he'll miss this weekend's race and the same race at Silverstone next weekend.
You're hearing some rumours of some former drivers at that team maybe making a comeback.
I think when you look at, for drivers who've got recent Formula One experience, the one that stands out the most is Nico Hülkenberg. He left Formula One not wanting to leave, kind of got forced out, if you like, and they've been trying to get back in. The Renault door shut, and now this door potentially is opened.
Welcome back. Nico, 24 hours in the life of a racing driver. Talk us through it.
Yeah, the last 24 hours have been a bit special. Crazy and wild. Yesterday afternoon got the call, you know, took a plane here. Yeah, it's been very special.
As we see Hülkenberg cross the line, goes P3. Wow!
Nico, that's P3 confirmed. Well done. P3 confirmed. Well done. Just Mercedes ahead.
Yeah! Get in there, Racing Point. Nice one.
Verstappen now gets to the pit lane exit. This is going to be so tight, and it is the Mercedes out in front of the Red Bull.
But he's got the fresh tyres and DRS. He should take very little time to dispatch the Mercedes.
Well, Bottas has moved over to the inside. He's left a gap though for Verstappen to attack, and as they go through Brooklands, it's wheel to wheel. Mercedes against Red Bull round the outside now at Lovefield. Verstappen has got a car length in front, and the inside line for Bottas isn't going to help him there. Verstappen is away, making his way now around the last couple of corners for his 9th victory in Formula One to win the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. Verstappen gives Red Bull the win, their first here at Silverstone since 2012.